long term?
Well, traditionally this camp's always been about that. You get the teams that aren't in the semi-finals, so you get a smattering of young guys. It's a great opportunity for them to raise their hand and see how far they can go with selection.
Obviously, Manu's injury is a massive blow for him personally. What kind of, because it's a longer term thing as well, what impact will it have for you? We know you've got more than one way of playing, so I'm sure you've got a way to cope with it. But can you just talk about, obviously he's had such a bad time of it with injuries anyway, generally. So I suppose it's frustration for him, but also how will you handle that moving forward as well?
Yeah, well, we missed Manu greatly. He's been a terrific team mate, terrific team player. And we feel for him, but we move on. We'll find other alternatives and find other ways of playing.
Do you have to play differently without him? I mean, I suppose.
He was a focal point of our attack, and we have to find other ways of having focal points of our attack.
Obviously, the way the speed of the game's been going with the ruck speed and things like that, will that help in that process anyway? If the game's a bit faster and hopefully there's, as I guess what everyone's always looking for is space, isn't it? If that helps with space, will that help that process?
I think we've seen in two domestic leagues, particularly the Super Rugby New Zealand and the France Top 14, the ruck speed increased considerably. But in other domestic competitions, that hasn't been the case so much. So we just have to wait and see what happens with the refereeing at the international level. We don't have any indication at this stage where their emphasis is going to be. So we'll just, again, wait and see what happens there.
And just in terms of the situation with Sale and the disruption, I'm just wondering do you expect that to have any sort of longer term knock-on effect for you, or what's your understanding of how it's going to impact?
Well, I really don't know what's happened. All I try to do is select the players that are available. So that's all I've been worried about.
So, I mean, is that a sort of day-to-day thing, genuinely, though, in terms of?
Yeah, no, we're looking at 3 players today, whether they'll be available to be selected. We'll find out this morning, and then we'll just wait and see.
Can you say who those are? Or is that...
Not at this stage, mate.
Do you think it's something you update on that later on? Do you think you might have to?
Yeah, look, I think this is going to be the way it is at the moment. I just saw in the football they had 3 players unavailable this morning. They can't go in the Gareth's camp, and they're having a camp at Penny Hill, so they have 3 spare bedrooms there. It's a fact of life at the moment. That's what we have to deal with, and we can't get too worried about it. We're not too obsessed about it. We'll just take the players that are available and then work with those players.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Eddie. Thanks,
mate.
Okay, would anyone else like to ask a question now in the live section? Please raise your hand. Okay, Neil, I can see you waving, so I will go to you, but if people could do the virtual hand as well, that's great.
Sorry, I'm a bit too early for me to have found that raise hand button. But Eddie, good to see you. Thanks for taking time to do this. Just wondered what your thoughts were overall about the future of rugby at the moment. Obviously, the RFU put out that statement the other week about the sad fact that there won't be crowds at these games coming up, and that's a big revenue hit for the RFU. Obviously, for you, I'm sure you prefer to have had fans at Twickenham. Is it all doom and gloom, or can you see some kind of positivity coming out of this?
Well, our job is to put a smile on people's faces, and that's what we're going to try to do. And we'd obviously like fans to be at the ground, but that's not going to be the case. But they can still be watching on the various transmissions that are going to happen, and we want to make sure we put a smile on their face, mate.
Yeah, I mean, have you been in talks with the hierarchy about financial implications going forward?
Look, I've had the necessary discussions. We know what we've had to do to meet the requirements of the union. But again, that's not a major issue for us. We've just got to get on with preparing the side and give people something to be happy about.
And as regards Manu, are you assuming he won't be available for the next year's Six Nations?
Well, I know he's not available for Italy. That's the only game I'm worried about at the moment.